Hello and welcome to another Times Radio Frontline Members Question and Answer. Now today we're answering comments from our channel members on Frontline episodes and other videos about the war in Ukraine and its impact on the world stage. I'm Philip Ingram. I currently present Times Radio Frontline, but I'm a former senior British military intelligence officer and NATO planner. But I also commentate now on all matters geopolitics, defence, security, cyber, and anything else that people ask me to do. So I'm going to get straight into your questions. First question or first point today is from Mac. And Mac, you ask, why are NATO countries not stopping and inspecting all Russian ghost ships as they pass through the waters? Any non-compliant illegal ships could be arrested and oil sold with the money going to Ukraine. A very good point. And I think this is something that we're going to see a lot more of in the coming weeks. I hope so. Part of the issue that there is a lot of these ships are sailing legally in international waters under non-Russian flags, so it's very difficult to target that they're Russians, and it's compiling the list of ghost ships and making sure that the necessary legislation is in place to intercept these ships in international waters and then what to do with them. It's not as easy as people make it out to be, especially for countries that comply with international law. For countries that don't comply with international law, like the Russians, they'd find it quite easy to do it. But it's something that I know different countries are looking at very closely, and we're seeing that with the Germans and some other countries that are focused into the Baltic Sea. They're turning around and insisting that all of the insurance papers for ships and the health and safety papers for ships are up to the required standard, and will stop and inspect those. That gives an excuse to stop, inspect, and an excuse to arrest if they're not in place. So watch this space is what I'm saying. Next point from Marty. Welcome back, Marty. Along with the plans for new boats, the Ukrainians also got hold of several crew lists, which now opens up new alleys for contacting these sailors potentially. That might put them on even more tension when they don't know who of the crew might have received an incentive to sabotage or like. Marty, you're referring to the fact that the Ukrainians have managed to hack the plans and a lot of the details of the new Russian nuclear submarines. And you're 100% right. If intelligence services can get details of individuals, and looking at the prolific use of social media that Russian military personnel have, it's not going to be difficult to tie them down. Our intelligence agencies, let's put it this way, if I was wearing a hat, I'd offer to eat it if the intelligence agencies weren't exploiting that and using it to try and target and turn some of the crews of these different vessels. Of course, General Budanov, the head of the Ukrainian GUR or HUR, their military intelligence, turned around and talked of a lot of the spying techniques that he uses and the way he helps turn individuals into agents working for Ukraine. This will be very useful information for him to apply those techniques. Go and find his interview. It's well worth reading. Astro, you come in and say, what I don't understand is why everyone is talking about these two submarines as if they're SSBNs. I haven't seen any classification of these two. Of course, you're talking about Donald Trump's statement where he said he was moving two nuclear submarines into the right area. And yes, too many people are jumping on the conclusion that they are SSBNs. The BN is the ballistic missile boat. That is the nuclear powered submarine that fires nuclear weapons. The other submarines are SSNs, which are nuclear powered submarines, but they fire conventional weapons, TLAM cruise missiles, be the land attack missile that's there. Donald Trump, I think, was deliberately obscure when he just said nuclear submarines. And of course, the SSBNs, those that fire the nuclear missiles, are in the right place anyway, because the range of the Trident missiles that are on board those submarines is so huge that they're not going to be out of range. So it's verbiage from Donald Trump, it's rhetoric. Mac, another one from you, thank you. Are the Chinese helping Russia to keep going so that they deplete their war chest and soldiers? Then they will invade eastern Russia and take back the land they lost to Russia in the past. Of course, you're talking about Vladivostok, which, if you've got any Chinese maps, the old Chinese names for the towns and cities in that area in southeast Russia, out into Southeast Asia, used to belong to China. We're talking of well over 100 years ago. I think China potentially sees Russia and Vladimir Putin's ambitions to regrow the Soviet Union as something of a potential threat, and anything that they can do to maintain a degree of control over that and to stop that happening is something that they will happily do. I don't think they are helping Russia to keep going because they want to deplete their military. There's a lot more that will come out of it, but that's a byproduct of it. The biggest thing that China likes is that Russia is helping to split the West's focus so that the United States, Europe, the UK can't focus on dealing with a growing Chinese threat. We're split between dealing with what's going on in Europe, what's happening in the Middle East, and then the tensions that are growing in Southeast Asia. It's that split that's important. Marty again. Oh no, Steve goes to Moscow again. Well then I hope Melania has more influence on Donald's decision than Steve has. Else that deadline will fizzle out like a candle when drowned. You're talking about Steve Witkoff being in Moscow, and actually, as we're recording this, his meeting has just finished with Vladimir Putin. We haven't had a formal readout yet. We're waiting for that once Witkoff has backbriefed Donald Trump. Of note, the Kremlin hasn't given a readout yet, which to me suggests that Witkoff hasn't achieved anything. He's not a diplomat. He plays golf with Donald Trump. You know, he's a real estate lawyer. He does the art of the deal, but not a diplomatic deal. And therefore, Vladimir Putin will play him. Whether that will lead to the deadline fizzling out, well, we just have to look back at what has happened with Donald Trump when he's put threats of tariffs on beforehand through his economic sanctions bit, and that sort of fizzled out a bit. But then it's come back with a vengeance. So, like anything with Trump and his decision making, we have to wait and see. Next point from Lars. Lars, you say you're very disappointed here on Times Radio. Why does Trump dare to play tough right now? What kind of submarines are on the way to the Western Pacific? And you ask, how much of the Russian nuclear deterrent has spider's web and the earthquake eroded? There's a lot in that. Donald Trump's playing tough because he has given a deadline. He wants Putin and Zelensky to sit down. Zelensky is playing Trump by saying, I'm willing to talk, I'm willing to go to peace. Putin doesn't want to go down that way. We'll see later on this week whether Donald Trump is going to follow through. He's been backed into a corner. Putin's been backed into a corner. One of them has to give. Let's see. I suspect it might be Donald Trump. What kind of submarines are on the way to the Western Pacific? He didn't say Western Pacific. They could be submarines in the Atlantic. We don't know whether they are ballistic submarines, nuclear powered, carrying ballistic missiles. Those are the missiles that have the nuclear warheads, or whether they're attack submarines, which are carry torpedoes or the land attack missile. They're nuclear powered, but they fire conventional weapons. So we just don't know. And we're assuming too much by commenting on it. And then how much of the Russian nuclear deterrent is spider's web and the earthquake eroded? You're referring to the Ukrainian audacious attack that destroyed a lot of the Russia's strategic bombing fleet. And then the earthquake that created a tsunami. And that tsunami caused waves into one of the Pacific Fleet submarine bases where their ballistic missiles were based. We don't know how much of the submarine fleet and the ballistic missile have been damaged. We know from some of the satellite photography that it's likely that at least one boat has been damaged and some of the docks, but that's about it at the moment. Of note, spider's web attacked strategic bombers that are capable of carrying nuclear weapons, but they're not the strategic bombers that do carry the nuclear weapons. They were at separate airfields, not the airfields that were attacked by the Ukrainians on spider's web. So again, there's been a lot of misreporting on the implications of that spider's web attack. I think the Ukrainians deliberately didn't go for the aircraft that Russia has allocated to the squadrons that are armed with nuclear weapons. They went for the aircraft that are allocated to launch the conventionally warheaded TLAM missiles and other things. But a good point. Nick, commenting on the video, Putin's war will be crushed as Ukraine is innovating on speed. and you say you were trying to work out the link between amphetamines and Ukrainian innovation. I had read the wrong speed. We were talking with Sean Bell. Sean Bell's an RAF fighter pilot. He lived on speed, but again, not the amphetamine type. It was the type out of the Harrier jump jet. And oh my goodness, was your adrenaline on speed when you flew in that? As I said in the interview with him, I was very fortunate to have flown in a Harrier T10, one of the few two-seaters that was in there. And believe me, I felt like I was on amphetamines. Not that I've ever been on amphetamines. So that's it, Nick. Thank you very much indeed for that. Thanks for watching this week's question and answer and for posting your questions. Remember, if you want access to exclusive videos and for your questions to be answered, please sign up for Times Radio membership. And oh, by the way, you can get us on your favourite podcast channel just by searching for Times Radio Frontline. Thank you. Goodbye.